I think after a deal is reached. It won't be in the too distant future. People are ready to go. Ships are there. The United States put through 2 warships through the Straits. We can open it one way or the other, but the best way to do it is to have an end to the conflict and a defanged and de-armed Iran.
Stocks just a tad lower today while oil is climbing as we await a potential second round of U.S.-Iran peace talks in Pakistan. Welcome to the second hour of The Big Money Show. I'm Taylor Riggs along with my amazing co-hosts, and with us for the hour, Barron's Investor Circle newsletter editor Josh Schaefer. Great to have you.
Great to be back.
So President Trump keeping up the pressure on Iran, threatening to blow up all of Iran's bridges and power plants if a deal is not reached. Tensions escalated this weekend after the U.S. seized an Iranian cargo ship. Iran vows to retaliate. Meanwhile, CENTCOM continues to enforce the blockade.
If Iran continues to push back on this, then absolutely we can expect more. This action from this weekend demonstrates that this blockade is not an economic show of force. It's an actual measure of economic pressure. We're squeezing out their ability to transport their oil. And then hopefully, at some point, that lands us in diplomatic pressure. So all the parties come back together and we work out some kind of negotiation.
Josh, I want to come to you first to see if you think anything differently. I continue to be pleasantly surprised at how well behaved these markets are being. The fact that the S&P 500 can trying to hold on to 7,100. We're back some and then more when you go back to February 27th, the Friday before the war broke out. So it was a round trip, and it was a difficult round trip, but I continue to be really impressed by oil at 88, and yet you have a market that's still near record highs.
The market seems to have largely moved on from this issue and is starting to price in new things, right? The NASDAQ composite is off 0.6% right now. That's barely moving, realistically, if we zoom out. The NASDAQ composite just closed out a 13-day winning streak. It was its best stretch since 1992.
You should do a pop quiz. I would have gotten that one.
Do you know how much the index was up over that period, Taylor? Almost 18%. Almost 18%. The NASDAQ was up almost 18%
It's shocking.
Across 13 sessions. So I think today, even without news over the weekend, you probably could have seen stocks take a breather, right? You're not going to go up every single day. So you're getting a little bit of a breather in the market, but you zoom out, and I think what you're seeing the market price in at this point is it's pricing in the AI story. What does all of this mean to the AI story and corporate profits in the U.S.? And the further we get into this story, it's not disrupting the AI narrative at all, and that's really what's driving the stock market here. The reason the NASDAQ was up 13 straight days is, yes, oil came down and there are tensions easing to some extent, it seems like, but really it's still AI that's driving the equity market. I think it's a little bit different than, say, just straight oil and stocks and what's going on at this point.
Lou, I want to come to you on your oil expertise. Something I was reading this morning said this is unlike the Ukraine-Russia invasion in 2022 and really unlike the stagflationary shocks of the 1970s because we are in a much better situation. Of course, we talked about Brent futures. 6 months out, we're nowhere near $100 per barrel. We also inflation is at a lower start, so you don't have central banks, unlike 2022 or the 70s, where you had to start doing this aggressive hiking campaign. We're not even thinking about rate hikes. And more importantly, the macroeconomic data is shockingly resilient, where you don't have worries of this immediate economic recession the minute oil climbs to $80, $90, $100 a barrel, because the economics and earnings have been so strong. Do you agree with some of those points?
I agree with all of it, and I want to say this. I think you put your finger on the right thing. We weren't on a high alert, high sensitivity economic backdrop when this war broke out with Iran. Everything was very strong, solid. To Josh's point, AI was driving the majority of the growth and the profitability, and nothing's changed that yet. So I think you look at it, yes, there's things, it's dangerous to say it's different this time, but you put your finger on the things that I think are most important. Inflation is about a third of where it was when Ukraine war broke out. You also were looking at GDP growth that was much less encouraging, right? Like we were accelerating back then, we were decelerating coming out of 2 quarters in the beginning of 2022. Even though it wasn't deemed an official recession, it was a recession. So the backdrops are completely different. And I think what it comes down to is what you alluded to, Josh, is that do we hear any companies, another 100 or so are going to report this week, say anything about energy prices impacting them? based upon the market, no one's anticipating. I mean, we're at $88. If you would have told me that we were shutting the Strait or Hormuz and we weren't going to be in triple-digit territory, I would have thought you were crazy. But this is the world we live in. We're looking past it. And
to add to your point a little bit, Lou, too, when we think about companies and sort of what we hear from companies in earnings season, this is the perfect excuse for management to come out and say we missed expectations for sales or expectations for profits because of energy prices, because of political uncertainty. You're not hearing it at this point. And if it were actually happening or even slightly happening, management will go to that. You hear it all the time, right? They talk about a weak consumer or consumers are being choicey, and that's why we're not selling the shoes that we told you we were going to.
To that point, when people are laying people off now, they're saying it's AI, right? Because it's an easy scapegoat. So I think you're right. Energy would be the scapegoat for
I'm wondering if the next 2 quarters as well will see a big boost because of they're clocking all their refunds from the tariffs, and then what sort of hit immediately to the bottom line can they win? So to your point, maybe things accelerate from here. Jackie, I want to try to take a little bit of a different angle when we think about China's role in all of this. And I'm firmly in the belief that the economic blockade was masterful. It's cutting off Iran. But my worry is China's kind of playing both sides. And I guess you could argue if you play both sides and at the end of the day you have no friends. But I'm also, if you play both sides, they're trying to be like the little bit of that intermediary. They've been a little quiet when it comes to Iran. There were reports that they're encouraging Iran to make a deal because they, of course, need Iran's oil. But Iran obviously is, China's playing nice and also talking with the UAE and some of the Gulf nations. And I guess I get a little bit nervous that we haven't spoken enough about China's role as being attempting to mediate, attempting to talk down both sides, and sort of big picture, where does this leave China at the end of all of this?
I still think China's doing what's in China's best interest, which China has always done. And leading up to this, China was supporting this Iranian regime, buying their oil, funding them, inadvertently supporting their terrorist activities, et cetera. And I think this was not just a message to Iran, what President Trump and Israel did, but a message to China too, that if you've got any ideas up in your mind to go do anything, don't do it, because this same thing that's happening here will happen to you. And I think President Trump has done this now enough in with respect to showing how strong America can be, and it needed to be shown because of Joe Biden and his weakness, that China sort of backed off. Now, I don't think that means President Trump or the administration trusts them in any way. China's still China, Show me who you are. I believe you. I know who you are. The thing that we're trying to do right now is just keep China at bay and not escalate the situation. With respect to what's happening in Iran right now, I think that this is a market and an oil market that is saying this will be, if it's another few weeks, even if it's another month, because I don't necessarily know what's going to happen. The president is threatening, and he's saying that he will bomb them when the ceasefire is up, when no deal is made. And I don't see a deal being made within, less than 24 hours. So I still think this was part of the plan. I don't like to always get ahead of it, but I still feel the president is just checking the boxes and going through these steps as the Iranians show more of their disorganization, more of their inability to cooperate, more of their inability to make a deal and be able to stick to it. It calls for a little bit excess force, and I think he will use that force. But the market thinks that like Mike was saying in the first hour, the Strait's going to be open either way. We could do it the easy way. We could do it the hard way.
Right. I think the market has seen that this blockade is totally effective, and it's allowing us to win, and it is suffocating this regime. The guy who's the head of the IRGC is a bad dude. He is a very bad guy, and he's the kind of guy who would do awful things to his own people and to other people. But fanatics need money.
Yeah.
Fanatics are only crazy to themselves unless they have money, and then they can do crazy, terrible things to others. And they are running out of money. Like, they are going to run out of money. An Iranian ship tried to run our blockade, and what do? We blasted a hole into their engine room, okay? That ship's going nowhere. That's our ship now. If we keep doing that, I think Iran walked away from sort of the deal we had Friday because we didn't drop the blockade. They wanted us to do that because they needed money. And now they're not going to get it. So it might get worse before it gets better. But, you know, through this war, we've talked about like Iran has done some things we didn't know they could do. We just did the thing that they didn't think we would do.
Yeah.
We blockaded the Strait, and it's changed the game, and I think it's changed it decisively in our favor.
We should know, too, the markets are not the economy, but one note I was reading is that believe the polls at your own will, but the polls for support of the president had dipped, but since energy prices have come down from the 115, 170, 17 to 80s, 90s, polls have shown actually increased support. So that's sort of another thing when people are just filling up their gas tank and feeling about how they feel economically.
I think the gas price is the scoreboard for everyday Americans across the board, no pun intended, because that's what matters most. That's what you see in your pocket impacting you the most. So I think that's what you're going to fixate on.